Hi everyone, Michael from MKRO here, and we're excited to host today's online workshop for your Build a Keyboard team event. A bit about us as a company. MKRO develops a whole range of B2B products for custom brands, creators, basically whatever industry wants to leverage the new category of custom keyboards, which we'll get fairly deep into in this first workshop. And we develop retail collections, marketing products, all types of things for people who want to utilize keyboards and keyboard-related desk products for their business. One of the main ways we do so is to host these types of keyboard events for knowledge-based companies all around the world, especially with remote teams. It's something that's really unique. We're able to provide this to companies like Google, Oracle, and Meta for the last few years, and it has quickly become one of the most popular choices for something both productive and just exciting and memorable for the team. Diving right into the components, you'll have three main packages in front of you. You have the keyboard itself, a tub of switches, and a box of keycaps. It's important to note that this is a super beginner-friendly tutorial and guide. You don't need any experience manufacturing, knowledge about keyboards. You can hop right in, so don't worry about that aspect and just have a lot of fun. The first thing we'll do is open up all the parts and tackle the keyboard first. You'll have a variety of pieces within the keyboard itself. This one, I've already installed a number of switches to kind of show what that next step would be. Yours will have, of course, no switches in them. It'll just be a bare bones keyboard. The first thing you'll do is take the USB-C cord. There's also an adapter from C to A in the box as well. And you'll want to plug this into a device. It can be plugged directly into an outlet, into a phone, a computer. And the thing we'll be verifying is that the PCB is registering. So once plugged in, what it should do is light up just like this. We can change the RGB lighting later on, but for now, we just want to make sure that the PCB is registering, there's no disconnection, and we don't want to go back disassembling all the hard work you're about to do to put together the keyboard. Once that's verified, you don't need to keep it plugged in, so you can go ahead and put away the USB-C cord. And you'll really only need these three main components. Before we start building, it's important to talk about why these are called mechanical keyboards, as well as some of the exciting aspects of the board in front of you. And in fact, there's a reason why the board I have is, you might have already noticed, somewhat different than the board you have as well. So why is it called mechanical keyboard? Most keyboards that you use today, whether on laptops or maybe one that you have from Dell or Logitech, the vast majority of them are not mechanical keyboards. This is a, let's say, more retro technology, how keyboards used to be manufactured decades ago. And now they're seeing an exciting resurgence back, first mostly in gaming, then in tech, and then now you see a lot of general use of people who just want something more custom, more comforting, more ergonomic, a better feel, something they can refine themselves. There's a lot more that you can get out of a mechanical keyboard than a stock, what's usually a membrane keyboard. And without getting too much into the specifics, membrane keyboards, the ones you typically find on laptops and off-the-shelf keyboards, they use a membrane sensor underneath. So when you press any single key on your keyboard, a membrane is approximating that it's been pressed and then inputting that into your device. Membranes are thinner, they're cheaper to mass manufacture, and that's why you see a great deal of them on the market. It's just a great product at scale, and why a lot of the keyboard manufacturers have gone that direction. Mechanical keyboards, on the other hand, and I'll grab a switch to illustrate this, instead of using a membrane, they'll actually use individual mechanical mechanisms called switches. And so we'll get a close-up look at it because this is going to be the component we'll be dealing with first. But essentially, instead of pressing onto a membrane sensor, each one is actuated with a leaf spring inside the switch. And that switch, once actuated, will register in the PCB within the keyboard and then into your device. So each one is a separate mechanism, not a single membrane that goes on the underside of the keycaps on a typical. It's accurate in the sense that because they're being actuated individually, those are individual presses that'll register into the computer rather than a membrane kind of trying to approximate. That's why you might experience things like misinputs with a regular keyboard. This one will be much more comfortable, much more accurate, and there's a whole slew of other benefits to the mechanical keyboard as well. So we'll go ahead and start the assembly on the first major step of this process, which is installing the switches onto the keyboard. Again, my board here has switches partially installed already, and all you'll be doing is opening up the tub, taking out individual switches at a time, and installing them into each socket of the plate, and as a result into the PCB as well. So the top part is the part that's pressed, that's the stem, that's where the keycaps will sit on. So of course that will be facing upwards. On the back side, you'll notice two pins rather, and a stub. So the middle one goes in the middle to kind of stabilize the switch in the PCB, and then you have two metal pins. The reason this is important is because you want those pins to be in the right spot in the PCB. So these two metal pins will go into, on the north side of the socket, you have the two staggered smaller holes. Again, you have a larger hole for the main plastic protrusion here, and the two metal ones will go on the two north ones. It's really the only two places where these staggered pins can go into. So what you'll do is you'll make sure your pins are aligned or facing towards the top part of the case, and you'll just flip it over horizontally and make sure it goes into a socket like this. Make sure that the switch is not bent or slanted, let's say, like this, but rather sitting pretty parallel to the plate. You can see this one is a little bit higher than the other switches because it hasn't been pressed in yet. And all you'll want to do is take your thumb and give it a nice push in. You should feel without that much resistance, a satisfying snap into the plate. There you go. You've installed your first switch into your first mechanical keyboard. Now, as you go about this process, there might be a point where you feel a little bit too much resistance or something is just not sitting right. What's most likely happening is that the pins have not aligned properly with those holes, and you're feeling resistance because the pin is getting squished or bent or something is happening. So what you'll want to do, and this is a tool we'll look at for both the keycaps and the switches. This tool is basically two tools in one. There's a keycap puller, which we'll look at later, and this one is for the switches. What you'll do to remove the switch is align those two prongs on the top and bottom of the switch. There's actually a slight indent if you push it against the plate and then press them together, where you feel them kind of clamp in on the switch. And once you have a nice grip on it without too much pressure, you'll just yank it right out and it should come out directly. These switches come in all types of categories and varieties. There are linear switches, there are tactile switches, there are the stereotypical loud, gamery, clicky switches, which we definitely did not include in anyone's kit today. And then even within those, you have switches with different amounts of strength that you require, the pressure required to actuate that switch in the spring strength. You have different materials of the casings of the stem itself. You have some that are pre-lubed like this one, some that are not. There are hundreds of varieties of switches out there on the market, and just searching for what we call an MX style switch, MX or Cherry MX, these are the X's or the crosses on it, which are a standard mounting system for keycaps. As a side note, a great way to explore this hobby further is if you are in a major city, and even a lot of smaller cities around the US and the world, they host keyboard meetups. Keyboard meetups are kind of like car shows. You go to the meetup with a keyboard or without one, and you get to try out the builds of hundreds or potentially thousands of other people who brought their keyboards to that meetup, showing off their specific custom build. Now, even with the switches you have in front of you, there are also modifications you can do. I mentioned lubing, that helps smooth out the process. Take this apart, wipe down the stem, and use any type of lube you want. There are some that are more viscous, some that are lighter. Again, a point of customization. There are also things like switch films, or you can change out the spring itself. again, to change and fine tune the way it sounds, the way it feels, the strength. These all go into the variability of that typing experience. Now that you're done with putting in the switches, yours will be much more complete looking than mine. You should have a key switch in every square socket of the keyboard. Next, we'll of course be placing the keycaps onto the switches themselves. So what you'll be doing, and I have a 60% here, so I'll be using a couple different keys as a demonstration. You'll begin to take each keycap, and they should be in the exact place that go directly onto your keyboard. If you do need a reference, you can use a laptop or a picture of a keyboard. They all use the standard placements for US ANSI layout keyboards. But you'll take a keycap, let's take the logo key, which will be my escape. You'll take the logo key, you can look at it, and to install it, just look at the back. Again, there is that MX stem, which, as you would guess, slot right over the X's on these switches. So you'll just need to make sure that they are facing the right direction, right? You don't want the E to go sideways or the 3 to go upside down, and you'll place that right onto the stem and give it a firm push downwards, and congratulations, you've installed your first keycap. You'll do that process for all of the keys onto the keyboard. Simple as that. You'll notice already that they feel a little bit grainier and they don't get oily like you typically see with keycaps on keyboards and laptops especially. That's because, of course, it's a different material. We use PBT. PBT itself has a deeper grain to it. We've refined our formula specifically for our PBT and our molds to be as comfortable as possible. Now, I mentioned the heat resistance. The reason that's important, and the reason we're able to do such vibrant colors with different designs and fonts, different images. This is one we did for the Google Swiss office with the skyline of Zurich, and that is dye sublimation. Dye sublimation is essentially a heat transfer of a film that is printed, transferred onto the keycap, so printed 2D, transferred onto the 3D shape of the keycap, and essentially baked in place, transferred by heat. Think of it as a very high-tech temporary tattoo, except this is not temporary. It's being absorbed by heat into the porous side of the keycap. And if you have a keycap with an image that goes to the side, you can start to see basically seeping into the keycap. It's dyed into it. It's sublimated. With PBT, we can do exactly what we did here and even further. We can do full images, we can do multiple colors, we can do different fonts, sub-legends, all of this at much smaller scales, at a much faster manufacturing speed, and we're able to service different companies with different logos, different images, different IP and properties, different brands, and now we're able to basically serve the market with as much customizability that it wants. Other important aspects of the keycaps, you'll start to notice this once multiple keycaps are on, and I'll go ahead and put a couple of keycaps on. By the way, a trick to get them out of the trays if you're having trouble is you can take the tray out and basically push the plastic from the bottom. So if you look at the side, once you've put in a couple different rows of keycaps, you may have noticed that the keycaps are of different shapes. It's hard to see that when you're first looking at a tray of keycaps, but the row on the top is of course the tallest and relatively the flattest, or more parallel on the top and bottom. And then as you go down, they slightly slope upwards, kind of like a U. So the F row and the number row will be what we call row 1. We have the next row is row 2, row 3, and the bottom 2 are row 4. This is following the standard guide for what we call cherry keycaps. And there are different profiles of keycaps. There are flat profiles, there are taller ones like SA. There's all different types that people tend to prefer one over the other. But the industry standard, especially with quality collectible keycaps, and one that works for a lot of people is, of course, the cherry row. This is also a main factor that contributes to the general comfort of mechanical keyboards over especially laptop keyboard that is all flat. That one is not ergonomic at all. You're essentially typing on a flat surface, and this is just another quality that adds to the overall usability and comfort of a mechanical keyboard. Switching out the keycaps is just as easy as switching out the switches. You'll use the other side of the tool, and you can test this out already. These two prongs will go on the sides of a keycap, like this. You'll turn it slightly to snag the corners under the keycap, and you'll basically just pop this right off. It's a little bit tough to demonstrate this as I'm holding it to the camera, but you get the picture. There's a lot of customizability here, and even in our own catalog, we produce dozens of keycap designs a month for gaming companies, for tech companies, for tons of retail companies. And if you do see another keycap design on the market that you are very interested in, go ahead and pick one up, and you can switch out the ones on your keyboard right here. By the way, congratulations, you built your first mechanical keyboard. Of course, mine here isn't fully assembled, so I'll pull out some recent examples of products that we've done for brand partners. Once your keyboard is fully assembled like this, by the way, these are some really fun projects we did. One for Buffalo Wild Wings, looks like it has buffalo sauce all over it. Again, kind of showcasing the design capability of dye sublimation on PBT keycaps. This one is a special edition one-piece design for Cloud 9 and Toei. You'll want to test that every switch is registering properly into your device. So you can go ahead and plug in the USB cord back into your device, and you'll want to open up either QMKVia, which is the in-browser software you can use to start to program different aspects of your keyboard. Your keyboard will have in the package, a kind of quick start guide if you want to start playing around with lighting features and different modes. The keyboard has tri-connectivity as well, so you have USB, you have Bluetooth, you have 2.4G as well as a Windows and Mac mode, depending on what you'd like. And you'll use QMKVia or Keyboard Tester, another simple link. We'll have both in the description of the video, where you can test out each switch to, again, make sure that every switch is registering properly in the device. If you feel an issue at this point, or it's not registering into the keyboard and into the device, except the function key, I believe that doesn't show up on Keyboard Tester. All the other keys are working except a select few or a single one. It likely means going back to the switch installation that there is a problem with that particular switch. So let's say the P key on this keyboard is not working. We'll want to remove the keycap and the switch to inspect it and see if it's not working. If the pin is still straight and yet it's not registering the device, again, I would just grab a new switch, place it back into the keyboard, and test it once more. If you do have any issues beyond that, please shoot us an email at the email below in the description, and we're happy to help troubleshoot, figure out what might be the issue there. Thank you all for participating in this event, and your team lead for helping organize this. We hope that this was really fun for you as it was for us in preparing for this, and we've done lots of these types of events in the past. They're always a great time. Please send us a photo of you and the keyboard. If you're in one big room or conference room together, take a group photo with your keyboard. It's always a great time. And we hope that this is a really fun, exciting way to enter the hobby and learn a bit about something that you might not have used before. But of course, for us, this is the most used device, the most used peripheral in the world. We really want everyone to have something on their desk they use every day that reflects who they are, their work, their passions, everything. And we hope you put yours to great use. Thank you so much.